Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Sohn, this is your third hearing. That is highly unusual. One of the reasons that you've had three hearings is that in the first hearing, you went through the entire hearing without disclosing the sweetheart settlement concerning Locast. And the entire purpose of the second hearing was when that came to light. You actively misled Ranking Member Wicker when he asked you in writing about the $32 million settlement. You did not correct the record that it was, in fact, only 2% of that amount, $700,000. You also disclosed at that second hearing that you never notified the White House of this sweetheart deal, even though you signed it literally the day after they announced their intention to nominate you. My question is this: do you think that your failure to disclose the secret deal to this committee and your failure to disclose it to the White House, do you think that reflected poor judgment, yes or no?
No, I answered Senator Wicker's question honestly, okay, and on advice of counsel.
No, you don't think it was poor judgment?
No, I do not, because I was bound by the confidentiality agreement of the settlement.
With respect, no, you were not. The confidentiality agreement, section 6.0, prohibited you from communicating with the media or the press. The last I checked, the United States Senate is not the media or the press. You had an obligation to answer this body accurately, and you did not. I would note the White House is not the media or the press, and you told this committee you didn't inform the president of it either. But let me move on. You don't think it was poor judgment to mislead this committee or to mislead the president who was nominating you. Let me ask you a second question.
Senator, I don't agree that I misled this committee, so I would like to make that.
The record is, I believe, abundantly clear, and in fact, I will be sending out my cross-examination from the last hearing, where you repeatedly mislead this committee in that hearing. And in fact, we'll go ahead and actually put this up. I'll note, I asked, did you disclose to the committee that agreement? I did. Did you disclose the agreement to the committee? I did. Hold on a second. Did you disclose to this committee? Yes or no? I did. You disclosed the $700,000 secret settlement? No. So 3 times you say I did, and then, oh, no. You did not. You misled this committee, and you also misled the White House. Let me ask you secondly, the 15 months that your nomination has been pending, you've made not 1, not 2, not 3, you've made 12 separate political contributions to senators running for office. I've been in the Senate 10 years. I have never seen a nominee make contributions to senators while your nomination is pending. I've never seen that once. I had my staff search the records. If we could find anyone in the Trump administration who had done that, my staff was unable to find that. You've been a significant political donor over the years, giving over $32,000. You gave. Do you believe it was poor judgment to give 12 separate political contributions to Democrat senators while your nomination was pending?
Senator, I'm a citizen who just wanted to participate in the Democratic process.
Do you think it's poor judgment to cut checks to senators who are voting on your nomination while it's pending? No other nominee that we can find has ever done that. Do you think it was poor judgment?
Relatively small donations, no, I don't.
It was over $1,000, $32,000 over your life.
Well, that's over my life.
Well, over $1,000 while your nomination was pending. All right.
But not to one person.
No. They were to a dozen senators, to a dozen different senators, including senators who've been critical of your nomination and senators who have not. You managed to cover the waterboard of Democrats running for office. All right, let's turn to another issue, which is you have been an active supporter of a left-wing activist group called Fight for the Future. And I will say the record of Fight for the Future is really quite remarkable because they have blasted members of this committee on both sides of the aisle. Here's a billboard Fight for the Future put up in West Virginia in 2017 attacking Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat. The billboard essentially accuses Joe Manchin of being corrupt. Ms. Sohn, do you believe Joe Manchin is corrupt?
Absolutely not.
You don't? Okay, well, that's interesting. I will point out, in 2017, Fight for the Future also erected similar billboards accusing Senator Tester and Senator Peters of being corrupt, both of whom are members of this committee. I can't recall a nominee who's actively supported efforts to blast members of this committee to run billboards.
Senator, may I address that, please?
You may.
When you say actively, I give every single organization with whom I work on net neutrality, $100 contributions at the end of the year.
Ms. Sohn, with
Doesn't mean I agree with their
respect,
tactics.
the time is limited, and yes, it does, because after they put up the billboards attacking Manchin, Tester, and Peters as corrupt, afterwards, you sent this tweet. Just made my end-of-year donation to this organization, urging others to do it after they did that. And because the time is limited, I'll note this group also blasted Marsha Blackburn, Dan Sullivan, and Roger Wicker, and astonishingly called for Chairwoman Cantwell to be fired. And after each of those, to be removed from as chairwoman of this committee, after each of those, you supported it. And in fact, I want to turn to the final point, the Roger Wicker one, where this group protested and said, you're buying a senator, and you said you don't support their tactics. I'm going to point out, you tweeted, well done, to this radical group who blasted the former ranking member of this committee and saying that his donors were trying to buy a senator. If they were trying to buy a senator, were you trying to buy senators when you made a dozen contributions?
Senator, I did not know, number one, that that was about Senator Wicker. Number two, I was criticizing Senator
Roger Wicker right there.
Okay, well,
that is literally what you retweeted was his name.
That's fine, but I was actually criticizing the donors and not criticizing the senator.
Senator Markey.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Sullivan, thank you. I don't know if that was your second round or if you went over a couple minutes, but we do want to go to that quickly if we can. I know people have to get to other things, but I do want to accommodate members. So Senator Cruz and then Senator Schmidt and then, yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a housekeeping matter, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 4 different things: a letter from the Log Cabin Republicans opposing Ms. Sohn's nomination, a letter from numerous police groups opposing Ms. Sohn's nomination, and a letter from FCC Commissioner Mike O'Reilly, former commissioner, about the program under Mr. Roop.
Without objection.
Ms. Sohn, I think you have a long and consistent career as a zealous partisan advocate. There is a role for partisan advocates. It just doesn't happen to be on an independent agency charged with overseeing communications in the United States. You also have a consistent pattern of being unable to perceive conflicts of interest, whether it is deceiving this committee and the White House about the sweetheart settlement that you signed the day after your nomination was announced, or whether it is being the only nominee I've seen in a decade to make contributions to senators who are voting on your nomination while your nomination is pending, or whether it is bizarrely supporting an extreme group that blasts multiple senators from both parties. Now, I asked you about Joe Manchin and the group Fight for Our Future, where they ran billboards saying Joe Manchin is corrupt. You said you didn't agree with that. I asked you whether you agreed with them that John Tester is corrupt. You said you didn't agree with that. I asked you whether you agreed with them that Gary Peters is corrupt. You said you didn't agree with that. Well, I didn't get to finish.
Wait,
so
are you going to go to me?
Oh, I am.
Okay.
Because she's attacked you too, but vicariously.
I'm not sure she has. I think an organization
the group
she belongs
that
to.
but not just belongs to, raises money for. So this group also ran the following billboard. It is a picture of Senator Sinema, also a member of this committee, and it's not subtle. In case you want to miss the message they're trying to convey, it's in bright red right at the top. It says, Sinema is corrupt. Do you agree with their sentiment that Senator Sinema is corrupt?
Of course not.
Of course not. Okay, you say of course not. So that billboard went up in 2019. At the end of 2019, what did you do? You sent out a fundraising email for this organization at the end of 2019, so after they had put this billboard up. Did you know about the billboards they put up attacking Manchin and Peters and Tester and Sinema?
I only actually knew the one about Senator Sinema. I didn't know about the other ones either.
Okay, so you knew they'd called Senator Sinema corrupt.
I did.
And after they called Senator Sinema corrupt, you asked people to contribute to them. Is that correct?
I asked people to contribute, not because of all of their
That's a
tactics.
yes or no
One
question.
time. Yes, I did.
Okay, so you knew they were calling Senator Sinema corrupt, and you asked them to contribute afterwards. And by the way, the next year, so this is 2019, you know, these tactics, you don't mind You were aware of them. You've testified you knew about them, at least with regard to Senator Sinema, and you wanted people to support them. You also did it again in 2020, and Chairman Cantwell asked if I was going to ask about her. I'd like to point out this same group sent a letter to Chuck Schumer demanding that Chuck Schumer remove Senator Cantwell as the chairman of the Commerce Committee. Why? Because this committee hadn't confirmed you yet. Now, I think that's a pretty extreme proposition. I gotta say, I've never seen a nominee or a group that the nominee fundraises for demand her own party's chairwoman be fired because you haven't been confirmed yet. Do you understand why this seems one heck of a conflict of interest?
I don't see how it's a conflict of interest, sir.
Does it seem impartial, or does it seem like an extreme partisan willing to burn everything down if either party doesn't do what you want?
Senator, I don't agree with all of Fight for the Future's tactics. However,
except you raise money for them, you know about them, and you raise money for them. You send tweets every year asking people to contribute. When you ask people to contribute, that's called raising money. Let me ask you, does the FCC have an obligation to defend democracy?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, okay. I'd like to look at chart number 15. Chart number 15, you tweeted, and I'm going to read. I agree that scrutiny of big tech is essential, as is scrutiny of big telecom, cable, and media. And trust me, the latter have played their own role in destroying democracy and electing autocrats, like, say, Fox News. Millions of Americans watch Fox News. You believe Fox News. As you said, this is not a retweet. This is you tweeting that Fox News plays a role in destroying democracy. Do you understand why millions of people don't think you're fair and impartial to regulate communications?
Fox News is not regulated by the FCC. And yeah, I have some issues with Fox News. I also have some issues with...
issues. Destroying democracy, that's not little. Let's look at number 16. Senator Sullivan asked you about that. You described Fox News as state-sponsored propaganda. You want to talk about vitriolic rhetoric? Senator Sullivan is right. It's coming from you. These are your words. What about Fox News as state-sponsored? You know, you talk a lot about private actors. Last I checked, Fox News is not part of the government. I want you to explain those two words, state-sponsored. Why? Because state sponsors suggest that at the FCC, you would use government regulatory power to go after them and silence them. What did you mean by state-sponsored?
What I meant by that, and again, remember, I regretted the tone of that, was that they were very, very, very close to the Trump administration. And the two of them were sort of interacting. That's why I called it state-sponsored.
Can I ask you one final question? Is MSNBC very, very close to the Biden administration?
I haven't the slightest idea. I don't watch it.
You don't watch MSNBC?
I do not. I don't watch CNN either. I listen to NPR, honestly. I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't like screaming chyrons from anybody, to be honest.
I'm going to take my time, if I could, here for my second round, and then